We start with the latest evidence of the economic damage across the UK caused by the effects of the pandemic. In the past 2 days alone, some 12,000 job losses have been announced, most of them in high street retail and aviation, two of the sectors hardest hit by the lockdown. Trade unions have accused ministers of sitting on the sidelines, but Boris Johnson says that while the risk to jobs is very, very serious, the Treasury has protected the livelihoods of 11 million people. Now, SSP, which owns the food chains Upper Crust and Cafe Ritazza, says it could cut 5,000 jobs because of the sharp fall in passenger numbers at railway stations and airports. The aerospace giant Airbus says it wants to cut 1,700 jobs in the UK as part of plans to close 15,000 posts globally. And the consultancy company Accenture has announced this evening that it will be making up to 900 job cuts in the UK. And the retailer John Lewis said today that some of its stores would not be reopening. And Topshop, Harrods and the shirt maker TM Lewin also announced job losses. Our business editor Simon Jack has more details.
Airlines, manufacturers, retail. The damage is deep and wide and seems to be getting worse by the day or even by the hour. The announcements of job losses are coming thick and fast. At the Airbus factory in Broughton, there was a sombre mood as people digested yesterday's announcement that 1,700 UK jobs will be going.
It's going to be a great shame to a lot of people. I've got family members who live here, so everybody, everywhere is going to be impacted.
I don't know, it's a big part of the community. It's obviously one of the main sources of jobs around here. So obviously if it goes, it does take a big impact on the community.
And that's why these painful decisions...
The chairman of Airbus UK said its customers were facing a crisis that would leave lasting damage, and Airbus had to ensure its own survival.
Look into the sky. I mean, this is the tourism industry. Our bloodline are airlines. Those are our customers. And, you know, if they catch a cold, we're obviously in the same situation. So this is unprecedented, and we want to be there for the recovery. So we have to cut our cloth according to our means. And it's tough, but we've got to do it. It's the right thing to do.
With fewer people getting on planes and trains, those stalwarts of airports and stations, Upper Crust and Cafe Ritazza, cut 5,000 posts. Today in Parliament, the Leader of the Opposition confronted the Prime Minister with a grim roll call that hours later is already out of date.
Airbus announced 1,700 job losses. EasyJet, 1,300 job losses. TM Lewin and Harvest, 800 job losses. That's just yesterday.
The Prime Minister defended the government response, pointing to a job retention scheme unprecedented in its scope and cost, but conceded some very tough times lay ahead.
We've supported huge sectors of the UK economy at a cost of £120 billion. And I'm not going to give a figure for the number of job losses that may or may not take place. But of course, the risk is very, very serious, as he rightly says.
A month from today, employers will have to start paying an increasing portion of that cost until the scheme is withdrawn at the end of October. One reason perhaps why job losses are picking up pace. There's been a seismic economic shock to the global economy, and these job losses are like waves crashing now on UK shores with alarming severity and frequency. The government spent tens of billions of pounds trying to delay this inevitability, but with this flood of new announcements, it's clear they're struggling to hold back the tide. The government has already spent tens of billions on keeping dying businesses alive. The Chancellor's focus will now shift from trying to sustain jobs that may no longer exist to trying to create brand new ones. Simon Jack, BBC News.
Well, as we've heard, the job losses also affect those working in supply chains, often complex and well established, as well as a range of supporting businesses. Our business correspondent Sarah Corker reports from either side of the Wales-England border near the major Airbus facility at Broughton.
On the Welsh-English border, Airbus provides highly skilled, well-paid jobs in an area where they can be hard to come by. This huge site makes wings for commercial aircraft, but future orders have dried up, and job losses here send a ripple effect through this community.
Every one Airbus job is worth 6 jobs in the supply chain. So realistically, when you look at 1,700 redundancies, that's nearly 10,000 jobs in the supply chain alone, never mind the local economy.
On the edge of the airfield, this cafe is popular with Airbus staff. The owner here, Sian, has already had to make 4 of her employees redundant. And how do you feel at the moment about everything that's going on?
Worried. always worrying. Obviously, myself, I've got my husband to think about, we've got a little one, so we're all losing out. So I think it's affecting everybody, isn't it?
From planes to trains, nearly empty railway stations have left food outlets like Upper Crust in trouble. 5,000 jobs are now at risk. Passenger numbers remain at very low levels, 85% down on normal, as many of us continue to work from home. And SSP, the owner of Upper Crust, says even by the autumn it expects to only have 20% of its stores open, and so it must take action now to protect the long-term future of the business. While on the high street, John Lewis is the latest retailer to warn some stores will never reopen. For smaller shops in Chester today, there are difficult decisions ahead.
I think every town, every city, particularly in the north, will suffer. Chester was already struggling. I've just walked down here and I've counted 14 empty shop units, and this is in the heart of the city.
And the fear is there's worse to come when the furlough scheme ends. James is an engineer, now at risk of redundancy.
I'm 3 months away from having a baby, and I was about to sign for a mortgage this week on a new property, so it's impacted me massively, really. Everything's been put on hold.
So you could be out of a job in
the next week, yeah.
In every city, in every sector, businesses are now cutting costs and jobs to try to survive this economic crisis. Sarah Corker, BBC News in Chester.
Let's go live to Westminster and talk to Laura Kuenssberg, our political editor. Laura, we heard the Prime Minister there mentioning the kind of spending and schemes that have been put in place already. What kind of scope does the government have to do more?
Well, Hugh, what they could do, but won't do, even though it's happened in some other countries, is extend that furlough scheme, which no question has supported millions and millions of people with huge amounts of taxpayers' cash and government borrowing to try to prop up the economy through this extraordinary crisis. But ministers are adamant that just can't go on for more than another few months, and it has to start being wound down because of the sheer cost and the sheer scale of it. What they have already said they'll do, as we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday, is speed up and accelerate the kind of big infrastructure projects that they want as a down payment to improve the country in the long term. But even though they want to put the pedal down on the floor, there are questions about really how quickly that can go, bearing in mind how much decisions about jobs are being made now. How much help is it, for example, to someone who worries about having a viable business for their cafe in Bristol, the promise of speeding up a road that might be built on Merseyside in 6 months' time. What we do know, though, is a week today, the Chancellor will be outlining what he hopes will suck up and prevent some of the pain. Now, as I understand it, a couple of the measures on the table are perhaps giving a couple of £1,000s to employers who create apprenticeships, or a couple of £1,000s to employers who create new jobs. But there is really an open question, not just what will the size and shape and speed of the recovery from all of this look like, but can the government really come up with measures that are viable, quick enough and effective enough to fear what many people in Westminster worry about happening? That the hangover from the awful coronavirus health emergency is the kind of employment that we haven't seen for generations.
Laura, many thanks again. Laura Kuenssberg with the latest thoughts there at Westminster.